And if you actually think about this, probably 20% of things in a treatment program is probably driving 80% of the results. Okay, if you look at a treatment plan and stuff like that, there's probably 20% of your rehab exercise or something like that that's actually given the most. Hey, welcome to the Go-To Physio Podcast. My name is Dave O'Sullivan, and in this podcast, my aim is to give you 15 years of my experience in professional sport and private practice and share that knowledge so that you can get real world results with your complex patients who have failed traditional approaches. I hope you enjoy the show. This week, I want to talk about the Go-To Physio 80-20 rule in a little bit more detail. So as always, we've got 4 types of episodes. The first type is HPP, Happy Progressing Patients. So that's where I'm going to take a concept from the book and I'm going to talk about the Go-To Physio 80-20 rule in the book today. I help you going from knowing this to really understanding it. The second type of episode is more just a Q&A. So if you want to get your questions answered on the podcast, thegotophysio.com/questions. Then the third episode is more of a traditional type of episode where I'll interview somebody. My promise to you with that is that it'll be practical information that you can apply in the real world. And then the fourth type of episode is just a topical issue that's probably come up in the mentorship program that I think is really important at the moment to address. Okay, this week it's a HPP episode. I'm going to talk about the Go-To Physio 80-20 rule. If you do have a copy of the book, we're on page 49. Okay, so this week we want to talk about how to apply the 80-20 rule so that you can look at the whole body without over-treating, without overreacting to the patient. So over the past 3 episodes, I've talked about some of the key principles in this chapter. I've talked about second-order consequences, motor adaptations literature, physical and emotional stressors, and also defining the root problem. So once we understand those 4 key concepts, now what we can start to do is we can actually start to apply this knowledge and actually take action with the patient. So the Go-To Physio 80-20 rule, I'll say here, it works around this time that I came across the Pareto principle, okay? So the backstory to this was, you've probably heard of Vilfredo Pareto of the 80-20 rule, okay? He found 80% of the results come from 20% of your actions, and it applies to everything, business, relationships, and wealth. So I started thinking about how it relates to the world of complex patients. And I spent a few weeks pondering this principle and how it related to second-order thinking mental models. And I aimed to identify the 20% of actions that were really driving 80% of the patient's symptoms. And if you actually think about this, probably 20% of things in a treatment program is probably driving 80% of the results. Okay, if you look at a treatment plan and stuff like that, there's probably 20% of your rehab exercise or something like that that's actually given the most benefit. Okay, so I think this actually applies in kind of all aspects. Now, I flipped this on the head and I came up with my own version of the 80-20. Okay, so what I was trying to do here then was like, okay, well, what's the actual 20% of things that's making the biggest difference? And I looked at the mental models and go, okay, well, if something isn't doing its job and we got that to do its job, and then the pain's no longer going to be a problem, or the problem's no longer going to be a problem in the first place, is that the thing that I need to actually flip? And instead of doing 20% of my time on that, do I need to do actually a lot more work with that? And would that then increase my results and make them more long-lasting? So what I ended up doing is my 80-20 rule is I spend 80% of my time desensitizing what I think is the true stressors or the things that's not doing their job, and then gradually exposing those to low tolerance. Okay, and then I spend 20% of my time desensitizing the symptoms and actually addressing the symptoms. So in the last episode, we talked about a patella tendon issue, okay? So if you've got a patella tendon problem, 20% of our time will be looking at the tendon, okay? So I might do like a little bit of massage on the capsule, okay? You might do isometrics for the tendon, okay? Depending on the stage it is, if it's reactive and stuff like that, to settle it down, okay? You might do some eccentrics. That is very much, okay? I'm absolutely fine with that. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people get is, he doesn't look at the side of pain. That's very untrue, okay? And very often, actually, while we're talking about this, sometimes I'll teach in the mentorship is, like, if somebody's in rage and pain, okay, and they're in a lot of discomfort, like with back pain and stuff like that, the very first session, I might just exclusively work with the 20%, where I might have to just get the symptoms to settle. And then as we start to unlayer the onion, so to speak, you'll start to find the true cause of the problem. Okay, so that might be, in a rare occasion where I'm not 100% sure what's actually driving the problem in the first session. Okay, and that's fine too. But we have the structure and system that I know once I settle the symptoms down, the picture, the story will start to reveal itself. Okay, so the 20% of the symptoms, that might be, for example, somebody with knee pain. I might massage the vastus lateralis. I might, I've used dry needling in the past with vastus lateralis, okay, whatever it is, okay. I was doing a lot of work with that. But then the 80% of our time, so I might then also after the hands-on, I might give like a 3D quad stretch or something like that, okay. Then if I find that soleus or the hamstrings can't co-contract at the knee, then I'm spending 80% of my time taking those tissues through a graded exposure. So that's where I might do like the midfoot bridge, okay, soleus slouch, all of those things. Then I'll go into leaping, hopping, and all of that. But there's a particular emphasis on increasing the load tolerance through these tissues. And I think that's really, really important to understand is it's not just about giving one or two exercises to the patient, give them a few hamstring exercises, a few soleus exercises. We have to get everything working together, okay? But we have to do it through a graded exposure load tolerance. And that's what's really, really important is it's not just good enough to do stuff in the physio room and then the patient goes back out onto the field and hope that it carries through. We know there's a mismatch in load tolerance there. We know, for example, with hamstrings that the only real way we can recreate load tolerance through the hamstrings that they're going to need to do sprinting is sprinting, that we can't recreate that load tolerance in the gym. That's not to say that those exercises in the gym, and again, I don't want to go into a debate with Nordics or Romanian chair deadlifts or anything like that. That's not to say those things aren't useful in the gym, but they're a part of the graded exposure load tolerance. And then when we get out onto the field, we have to expose all of these tissues, the soleus, the hamstrings, the hip, the quad, all working well together, okay? So my approach in the Go-To Physio rule with the 80-20 rule is it's going to look like this, okay? The initial assessment, we need different skills to probably the sessions 2 to 4 to sessions 5 to 8, for example, okay? If someone was going to have 8 sessions. In the first session, I'm really interested in what's not doing enough work, okay? So if we imagine we had a seesaw, we'd have the symptoms, we'd have what's not doing enough work. Now, the first few rehab progressions, okay, a lot of my rehab exercises, they're designed to almost unbalance that seesaw. So I'm putting the tissues in a position where they have no choice but to tolerate load, okay? So if I can clean up the stuff on the bed and I get the patient to standing in the first session, ideally, I might use a soleus slouch, okay? Now, a lot of patients, they won't be ready for that in the first session, okay? If your patient getting pain, knee pain, doing soleus slouch and stuff like that, they're probably not ready. You probably skipped a couple of steps. So the first progression is let's put them in a position where they have no choice but to tolerate the load. So I take away a lot of the cheats. So if somebody had back pain, for example, I might get them to relax their back, their neck, reach with their fingertips, drive ribcage depression. That's going to get a lot of relaxation in the back and it's going to further increase load tolerance on the soleus, okay? So that's what I'm going to do in the first few sessions where we're spending 80% of our time getting everything else to do its job. And then we might give them, a VL, might give them a quad stretch, I might give them some load tolerance through the VL. If I think actually I want to lengthen that eccentrically, that's absolutely fine, okay? But then as we get into the last few sessions, okay, so I've gone from, okay, the symptoms are doing too much work, soleus isn't doing enough work. Now I'm giving a load of stuff where soleus has no choice but to tolerate load. But then as I start to bridge the gap from low to high level rehab, I need everything to do its job. So that's where now I need soleus, vastus lateralis, low back, all of them to do their job. So the soleus slouch, as I'm getting the patient closer to the return to play, or whatever it is running, that's going to be no good at that point because now I want my back, my soleus, and my vastus lateralis all to work together as that foot hits the floor. Okay, so that's where then we're going to start to actually even things out. Okay, so for the first few sessions, we're going to use the 80-20 rule. But then as I get back up to return to play in the last couple of sessions, then we're going to go into a 50-50 in terms of load tolerance. Now, at that point, anyway, your hands-on treatment is going to be minimal because it's pretty much going to be all load tolerance. And then at that point, everything's doing its job. And then, as I said, we've passed our key questions from last episode. Am I working on the root problem or the symptoms? Will this solution, if it's implemented, mean that actually the problem isn't going to be a problem in the first place? And will it pass the test of time? Okay, so that's how I use the 80-20 rule. Okay, So the last couple of things to mention here is, and I actually mentioned this in the last paragraph here on page 50, I won't lie, okay? It was scary at the start to change this approach, especially in pro sport when the pressure was on to get results. But as I saw results, my confidence grew more and more with each patient. And I slowly implemented this approach in private practice, and the results were great in the first few sessions. Yet I still hadn't grasped the concept of second order consequences in private practice, and there was a few problems left to solve, okay? So what I've kind of given you the answer there with that, and that was the ability to bridge the gap, okay? But the key point I want to take from this is it's scary when you actually have to do this for the first few times, okay? And this is the practical application of this now, okay? Now, with your patient, you go, okay, well, actually, I'm going to not just treat the symptoms. I'm going to look at something else. The easiest way to do this is have a solid key performance indicator, okay? So again, for example, your single leg squat. If that was causing a problem for the patient, if I increase load tolerance through soleus and I do some hands-on treatment and I do some rehab loading, then when I recheck the squat, you might find actually that the single leg squat's actually the decreased pain experience. Okay, good. Got soleus doing a little bit more work. That's one way to increase your confidence to know you're on the right track. Now, as I said, sometimes you might just need to actually desensitize the symptoms first if they're irritable. So as always, the person in front of you is going to dictate that. But the key thing I want you to understand here is you have to do the work before the confidence comes. It's easy to have confidence after you've done the work, okay? Because you'll start to see results. The results will get better. They'll get more consistent once you're clear. And then that's what drives the confidence, okay? But I want to completely empathize that I appreciate it's scary to look at the body like this, go outside your comfort zone and actually implement it. Whereas my confidence is sky high these days when I look at things like this because I've had so much practice. And confidence, I think I got this from Wikipedia. It's a state of being clear-headed, okay, or calm, that either your hypothesis or your prediction is going to get a desired result, okay? So again, I've got sky-high confidence because when I treat something now, I'm expecting the single leg squat to improve, even without looking at the tendon or whatever it is. And that's just happened from practice, okay? I've had to go outside my comfort zone, just like you may be about to now, okay? Again, therapists in the mentorship program, it's kind of second nature to the majority of them at this point. But if you're just kind of coming across this concept and you're about to take that journey, I appreciate it can be scary, okay? And that's ultimately why the mentorship program is designed to support you and give you accountability to walk you through this program, okay? Or to walk you through this, because actually the reality is a lot of weekend courses and stuff like that, you get all this information, then you go to apply it in the real world and you run into barriers. And that's where the key concept with the mentorship is. It's not just about the step-by-step system and structure and trainings and all the videos and the cheat sheets. There's actually mentoring and coaching as well. And the mentoring and coaching is the most important point when your confidence is at its worst, essentially. Okay, that's the bit, the coaching and the mentoring. That's the reassurance that we need, just like patients need, to keep going, get through that barrier. And then once you break through that barrier, usually you never look back. Okay, so really, really important to empathize, to let you know that I know what you're going through. I've been through it myself, but as I said, it's like that quote, the best time to plant a tree was a couple of thousand years ago. Second best time to plant a tree is today. Okay, so I applaud you for being brave, for thinking outside the box, so to speak. Okay, critically thinking and actually looking at the person as a whole. Okay, that's it for this week. Okay, as always, if you enjoyed the show, please share the show with your colleagues, okay? If you got something useful for this, please leave a review for us wherever you're watching this. It really helps get awareness and help more therapists have the clarity and the confidence to help patients who have failed traditional approaches, which means the biggest winner here is people who are living in pain, okay? If you want to get your questions answered on the show, thegotophysio.com/questions. If you want to pick up a copy of the book, you can get that, thegotophysio.com/book. Our special project, which we're about to launch, okay, for people who aren't quite ready for the mentorship, thegotophysio.com/members. Or if you want to get this thing sorted, if you want to get the confidence to treat any patient who comes through the door, okay, get them results, solve big problems for patients, the most simple and direct path. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to spend tens of thousands of pounds gaining all this knowledge and not being able to apply it in the real world. Then thegotophysio.com/mentorship. That's the thing that's going to get you there in the most quick and direct path, because there's the systems, the training, coaching, the mentoring, and the community. 3 aspects of it that I think every therapist essentially needs in order to thrive. Okay, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't be afraid to share the show. Don't be afraid to leave me a review. As I said, it really helps me also knowing that actually, number 1, people are listening to this, and number 2, that you're actually getting value from it. And that makes me then want to do more of obviously these shows as well. All right, have a great week. Person first, pain second. Solve big problems for your patient. What is the pain? What problems is the pain causing your patient? Make a massive impact on their lives, as I said, and help those people that have failed traditional approaches, because there's a lot of them out there who need our help. Have a great week. I'll see you next week.